After seeing sequence, which is actually the most foundational concept in programming, we are going to see the most foundational data type in programming, that are variables. So what is a variable? Actually, in computer programming, a variable is a storage location paired with an associated symbolic name. Actually, this is an identifier which contains some known or unknown quantity of information referred to as a value. So, for example, we could say that as in mathematics, we have a variable with the name, the identifier actually, is x. And this x has a value of 5. This means that whenever we call the variable x, the value will be 5. But the identifier could be anything. Actually, is a symbolic name, is an associated symbolic name. So it couldn't be x, but it could be, for example, tax number, okay, is 231450. So this is my identifier, and this is the value. So as you can see here, this is my identifier and this is my value. So actually, in computer programming, a variable is a storage location. As we said, an identifier, and contains some known or unknown quantity of information referred to as a value. It is important because the variable name is the usual way to reference the stored value, in addition to referring to the variable itself, depending on the context. So this separation of name and content allows the name to be used independently of the exact information it represents. So the identifier in computer science and computer source code actually can be bound to a value during runtime, and the value of the variable may change during the course of program execution. So this is actually the main concept of variable, that it has a value that actually could change during the course of program execution. So let's see actually what does variable mean. Actually, in mathematics, for example, we have, as we saw in the previous slide, x equals 5, which means that whenever we see x, this equals to 5. The same is for programming, but actually at the same time is a little bit different. Actually, variables in programming means that the value varies. The value could change while the program is being executed. So, for example, we could have that x equals 5. Actually, this is something that we will see. It has to do that this is a command, and with this symbol, the command ends, and actually is a bit common between different programming languages. The second one means that y variable has the value 8, and this one means that z variable will have what x has and what y has. So will be the sum of the value of the variable x plus the value of the variable y. So I would like to stop right now, to stop the video, and tell me what do you think will be the value for the variable z. With what will be the value of the variable z that equals with the value of the variable x plus the value of the variable y. Actually, x has the value 5, y has the value 8, so z equals 5 plus 8, which means 13. So this code means that we assign the value x to 5, then we will give the variable y to the value of 8, and finally the variable z will give the value corresponding to the sum of x plus y, which means 13. So this was an example actually of the sequence structure where each command is executed once the previous one has been completed. So as you can see from this example, variables in programming may not directly correspond to the concept of variables in mathematics. Actually, as you can see, it's a little bit more abstract, having no reference to a physical object such as storage location. So the value of computing variable is not necessarily part of an equation or formulas in mathematics. Variables in computer programming are frequently given long names, as we saw in the previous paradigm, the previous example, to make them relatively descriptive of their use in our code. So whereas variables in mathematics often have tiers 1 or 2 character names for brevity in transcription and manipulation. So a variable's storage location may be referred by several different identifiers, a situation known actually as aliasing. So assigning a value to the variable using one of the identifiers will change the value that can be accessed through the other identifiers. So compilers have to replace variables' symbolic names with the actual locations of the data. Compilers are actually something that we will see later, actually takes the code and transfers the code into our computer in a way that a computer can understand our code. So while a variable's name, type, and location often remain fixed, the data stored in the location may be changed during program execution. Let's see another example. We have this time variable x, and also in this this command x, variable x has the value 5. So I would like to stop the video and tell me what is the value for the variable y. It is pretty obvious. Actually, it will be also 5. This time you can see that this is something that in mathematics I cannot say. I cannot say that x equals x plus y. I could only say that in mathematics only if y had the value of 0. So x equals x plus 0, which means x equals x. But in computer programming, it's something completely different. It means that as we could see in this example, we had actually the sequence, which means that each command is executed once the previous one has been completed. So there, the value is is 5. I'm sorry. The value for x is 5, and there in this code, in this command, also x has 5. But there, this means that the value of the variable x will change and will have a new value that equals with the sum of what the value of the variable x was until this time, and also what the value of the variable y was until this time. So what will be the new value of the variable x? Stop the video and write it to the comments, please. As you could see, so the answer is that the new value will be what the value of variable x was. The value was 5. And what the value of the variable y was. The value was also 5, as you could see from here. So the new value of the variable x is 10. And there, if we had other commands, in all these commands, if we referenced in variable x, then the variable x would have the value 10. While if we had other commands there, and we referenced there in variable x, the value of the variable x is 5. And here the same, the value of the variable x is 5, but after this command the value of the variable x changes and the new value is 10. The same happens here. The new value of the variable y will be after this command 2 times the value of the variable y before this command, plus 10. So stop the video and write in the comments what will be the new value. And actually the answer is that the new value would be 2 multiple with 5, that this is the last assignment in the variable y, plus 10, which means that equals 10 plus 10, which means that the new value is 20. So after this, if we reference here in the value of the variable y would be 20. I think it's something that after this example you will understand totally what is the meaning of the variable. Actually, this is an example in C. I chose this example because it's something in a very common programming language in C, but as I told you in the previous section, it has nothing to do with the programming language. Once you are taught and you will learn all the programming concepts, you will see that you could be independent from what programming language you will choose. So let's try to read this code and understand what we do here. Actually, this one is a comment, which means that whatever we write here between these symbols, it's something that the computer will not read it. We write this for ourselves. So this one is a comment, as we call it in programming languages, and this one is something that we always use in C programming language, and has to do with the start. It has to do that we will use our main function in this program. Actually, this is our program, and this means that we will use a variable that is will have integer values. So this means that we have a variable with the name number, and that will have values in an integer data type. So then we are going to give a value in our variable number. The value is 7, and then we want to print this message to my screen. So it will print the message my first program. This means that we will change line. So print this message, and change line. And this command means that also print this message, but then I would like to print the value of the variable number. So it will print my first program, it will change line, it will then print the number that I choose is, and then it will print the value of the variable number, which is 7. So it will print the number that I choose is 7, and it will again change line. So this is a very good example to understand the meaning of the most fundamental data type in programming that has to do with variables. Looking forward to seeing you in the next chapter.